Start recording. So
Okay, so 5:33, we'll call our meeting to order. Thank you everyone for attending by Zoom tonight. We'll start with our, of course, recognition, acknowledging the treaty territory of the Anishinaabe, which is defined within the pre-Confederation treaty known as the London Township Treaty of 1796. Throughout time, this region has also become the current home to the Haudenosaunee and Lenape Nation. So, acknowledging that, we will move on to the completion and acceptance of our agenda for this evening. Could I get a motion? Thank you. By Colin, seconded by Kara. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion is passed. We'll ask for any disclosures of interest. I'm working off my phone here and I don't see everybody. So what I'm going to ask is if you oppose anything, that you speak that opposition. Okay, hearing none, moving on then. Approval of the minutes of our previous meeting from May the 18th. Could I ask for a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. And seconded by Kara. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion is passed. And it appears as though we have a communication from the City of London, a council resolution that we will hear from Paul on.
yes, through the chair, we have correspondence from the City of London and the city clerk confirming that they accepted the resignation of former director Tammy Brooks, and that we will be working with city clerk's office. They'd be directed to advertise as through their normal process. So it is standard communication that we've received from the city clerk, just acknowledging the receipt of the resignation and initiating the process to replace the director. There's a subsequent report in the package that deals with creating a subcommittee, so we can leave that for any further discussion if we want when we discuss that report.
Thank you, Paul. Moving on to consent items for this evening. Let's hear the consent items together and we will comment on them together. So I will ask for a motion to receive and approve consent items 2023 37 and 38, CEO report and the vacancy management report, moved by
Kara and seconded by John.
Thank you. Okay, we will hear from you, Paul, and then Andrea, and ask questions following up.
Okay, and just through the chair, just clarification, the vacancy report is a shared report from tenant services and property services. So while Andrea's name is on the from line, it is actually a shared report. You'll probably hear from both Andrea and Christine on this report. Just a little bit of a sort of a failed update on that cover. So just with that, the CEO report is pretty straightforward, just giving an update to the board on a meeting with the local housing corporation group, where we met with the assistant deputy minister for Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, which was an interesting conversation about the plans for the Ministry of Housing as they move forward, as well as sort of looking at the intersection between sort of what's happening with the support needs of tenants and what they're hearing from local housing providers about that and the need for supportive housing. So it's sort of, it was heartening to hear they're looking at the needs of supportive housing. There's a lot of investment going into that, but also the impact of tenants not having the right support. So it was an interesting conversation. The follow-up is really for the local housing corporation to generate a presentation to the ministry to sort of share these concerns and any other concerns we have in a format that sort of just highlights those points. So we anticipate a future meeting with the ministry in the fall where we can sort of try to align what we're seeing and what they're thinking to try to make sure we have a plan going forward. Reimagine Southdale continues to move along. So we are doing the request for pre-qualification of vendors, and that will be finalized in the coming week. And then we'll try to get, our objective is to get the 100% building plans done by the end of June, so that we can then submit those to the city and move forward to building permits as we go forward with the RFP for the general contractors and mechanical and electrical contractors. And I think just the other highlight, and we had talked about this, I think at an earlier meeting of the Finance Committee, the asset management planning, we're working with the City of London to do a letter of understanding with them on sort of how we work with them to integrate our asset management plan with the City of London plan. LMCH has an approved asset management plan approved by the Board of Directors. And since that time, we're sort of, the City of London has been sort of reframing how they sort of create these plans. So our plan needs to nest under the City of London's, because our assets are on their balance sheet. So we'll be working with them to make sure we're following the exact same processes. Our numbers mean the same thing as their numbers, all that stuff in the coming weeks. And we think we're aligned, but we're going to reformat the plan, and we want to get we'll be putting a memorandum of understanding or a letter of agreement in place on how we manage that process so that we continue to be aligned to the city requirements in the future years. I think for the CEO report, that would be the highlights.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board or comments for Paul on his report?
Ellie, just a question.
Yes.
Thank you, and I'll apologize if my dog barks. Paul, I heard something that the assets fall under the city. Does that include the county assets, or they remain under the county?
A great question, Mayor Grantham. I will have to confirm that. But my understanding would be the assets were transferred to the service manager, and where the service managers for the City of London and Middlesex County, that the assets would have transferred to the City of London. I can confirm that for you.
Yeah, thank you. Just more out of curiosity than anything. Thank you.
Yep.
No other
If we
questions?
transfer them to Colin, can we pay a bigger share?
Proportionate to the something. I don't know what the something is, but
Great. Thanks, Paul. Andrew and Christine, you are up.
Good. Thank you. Good evening. And through the chair, I'll start. And then if Christine maybe has any additional pieces, if she's feeling like I haven't met some of the target pieces that she wants to talk about, then we'll let her sort of step in. So if you take a look at the vacancy report this month, we continue to see some positive trends in the vacancy management. We had talked about this sort of late last year with the expectation that month over month, we were really going to start to see those numbers come down. And the property services team have implemented a number of process improvements that we can see are starting to show dividends. When you look at the levels, the vacancy levels and the number of units that are in restoration with them now, they've actually got that down to 84, which is a considerable amount of work that's happened through this early part of 2023. So the other piece that we're working on is further refining of the unit restoration process and the vacancy management piece. That is being automated, which will make it a lot simpler for all of the staff to be tracking. Instead of trying to run reports on a regular basis, it's all going to be automated through our property management software now. And so we won't need to be pulling reports on a regular basis. And so that work is sort of in the testing phase. We're just working on some scheduling. So I think that we'll continue to see some improvements on the timelines and times to restore units, time to rent units, because this will all sort of have a positive impact. As I said, vacancies, the number of units that are currently with the restoration is down to 84. And overall, our current vacancy number is 3.5%. To the end of May, which is actually the lowest that it's been in the last year. And so we're not quite at the targets that we want to be, but absolutely, if we look at the trends, we are moving towards them. And as usual, really positive results on the tenant placement side of things. They've met or exceeded their targets consistently this year. And other than that, I think either Christine or I, maybe Christine might want to say something else, but otherwise we're both happy to take any questions that the board may have.
For me, I just want to outline one of our big focuses this month. We started off the month of June with 30 units that have been sitting in the restoration stage past 90 days. The goal is to focus on getting those 30 units done, plus the monthly target of 12 units per portfolio as well. So for portfolio 2, if we look at that one, we have 16 units in that portfolio that has been sitting past 90 days. So with their monthly target as well of 12 units, that would be an expectation of 28 units completed for the month, well, between June and July. The total of units that we are looking at with the 84 currently in inventory would come to approximately 66 units. If you take the 12 per portfolio, which comes to 36, plus the 66, or sorry, the 30 from the beginning of June that's past 90 days. So that's a high target. I'm not promising we're going to hit all 66 units, but that is definitely the goal right now at hand. And these units are already underway of restoration. So we're hoping to see a big improvement for June and July to get these units done.
Thank you, Andrea and Christine. Comments from the board?
Through you, Chair, in your car. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be discussed at the tenant services meeting that's taking place next week. So we were attempting to discuss it a little bit sooner, but we weren't able to have that meeting. So, I mean, I'm just really appreciative of the compassion and, you know, the open-mindedness that's going into this. And I'm hopeful that we're going to find a solution and a different way of approaching things. And so, Christine, thank you very much for, you know, your input in that as well. And you too, Andrea. And I guess my only question is just of the total vacant units, what's the breakdown as far as like family units, individual units, or do we have any information on that? And if not, that's okay. I mean, we'll discuss it at the tenant services meeting. Thank you.
I'll have the exact numbers for you for the tenant services meeting.
Other questions or comments? I would like to just acknowledge the work that that the team is doing. Andrea, echoing your comments that a lot, it's obvious that a lot of hard work has gone into this. The changes that you're making are positive changes. The trends are going in the right way. For the last couple of months, we've seen that vacancy number in the 3 point something or other. And I don't remember ever seeing it in the 3 point something number as long as I've been tracking it. So that in itself is a tremendous accomplishment. And just wanted to say, great. This is obviously an area that everyone is keenly interested in. And thank you for moving it forward. It's really appreciated. All of those in favor. So I would just like to.
Shelley,
Yes.
sorry, hate to interrupt. I just wanted to follow up on what you were saying. I agree. In the time that I've been following this number, that's the best I've seen it. And I think that that's information in addition to, I know we've got the AGM report the council will be receiving on our package too. But that's information that I hope Paul and Phil will have ready to share when they present to council as well. because that's one of the numbers that council takes, at least historically, has taken the closest look at when they're considering LMCH operations and whether or not it's tracking towards the goals that our council kind of wants to see. That's a really key number, and that's a very positive number to be able to share when this is presented.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you. So just to correct the record, Melissa, I had previously asked for a motion to receive and approve the CEO's report and the vacancy report, but I stand corrected. The reports were received for information only. So we'll just ask that you amend the minutes to reflect that. I'll call the vote. All of those in favor for receiving the reports for information only? Any opposed? I'm listening for shouters here. No shouting? Okay. None opposed, and we will consider that passed. Thanks. Thank you, everybody. Okay, now, the next set of reports we are in fact going to receive and ask for approval on, and I'd like to bring them forward as a group. And I will just speak to this briefly before we get the motion on the floor. The next 4 reports are reports that have already been previewed and discussed by the Finance Committee and have been put forward to the board for the board's approval, having already been approved at the finance level. So I will ask for the motion to receive and approve the following reports. Third, Staff Report 2023-39, the recosted operating budget. Staff Report 40, the service agreement for our pest control services. Report 41, the 2024 capital budget. And Report 42, approval of the CMHC unit retrofit budget and approval of CMHC unit retrofit tender. So I'll ask for the motion to receive and approve those reports.
I'll move.
Somebody out there, I know you're out there. Thank you. And seconded by?
I'll second, Shelley.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Diana, if I could ask both you and Trevor to just speak briefly to these, knowing that they've already been approved by finance, and then we will ask the board for any questions or comments. And thanks for pitching in. I can't see them on my tiny screens.
Thank you, through your chair. So I'll start with the recosted budget. So the provisional budget was originally approved and presented to the board in August of 2022, which was prepared on the very high level for our organization. Since then, we had a chance to compare our perspective and forecast against our closed and audited financial statements, which resulted in the present budget, which we're bringing for your approval. So our total expenses are forecasted to be increased by $798,000, which are driven primarily by our spend in maintenance materials and services. We also see significant increase in our utilities, as well as we are budgeting to slight increase in our administration cost. Part of that increase is absorbed, all that increase actually is absorbed by forecasted or budgeted increase in our total revenues, which reflect current legislative increase in the minimum rent. Well, we are presenting for your approval the balanced budget. That means we do not anticipate to close the year with. Thank you. If no questions, I'll pass to you, Trevor.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, Diane. So the first report from me is on the 2024 capital budget. Just to refresh everyone, we receive through the City of London 2 funding sources of capital every year. 2.2, which is our base capital funding, and just over $6 million, which was part of a business case business case 12, which was submitted during the last multi-year budget process. We have allocated the 8.35 million across a number of different projects, high, medium, and low priorities. The key ones here basically is we're investing in some key pieces of infrastructure which are basically original to the buildings. Major electrical upgrades, generators, and back of house electrical equipment, as well as some balcony repairs and some elevators as well. Stuff that really needs to be upgraded for the safety and well-being of the tenants. We have had a couple of outages where pieces of equipment have failed or been on the verge of failure, where we've almost had to evacuate buildings. So we'll invest in these things to make sure that the tenants are well taken care of. In addition to those couple highlights, this year we have put some money in for what we're calling a tenant directed fund. And the intention of this is to have some sort of voting process, and we have to roll it out and figure out exactly how the allocations are going to work, but engage with the tenants to make sure that we are investing in things that are really impactful for them. So that kind of similar to what the City of London does with the neighborhood engagement process. So we'll figure out the way to roll that out in 2024, but there's $100,000 in that bucket to really engage with tenants. Is there any questions on that report? Fair enough. Okay, as that's the case, we'll move on to the CMHC report. So we have a pool of money from the Canadian, from CMHC, Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corp. And we are using a significant portion of that money to invest in accessibility of our units. You look at the table, we have 416 units that we have earmarked for accessibility upgrades. This is not taking us to the level of what the current AODA, the Accessibility for Ontario with Disabilities Act, dictates, but we're doing as much as we can with our existing built environment to take it up to a much better level of accessibility for tenants. So we intend to do 416 units over the course of the next 5 years. And we, in the 2023 year, we intend to do a total of 119. And there's a breakdown in the report of which sites and how many at each site. The request or the request for approval in this report is that we have budgeted approximately $45,000 for each unit upgrade, and we're looking for approval to spend up to the number just over $6 million across this portfolio of units that we want to upgrade. With the new procurement policy that was approved in May, we basically we're asking for your authority to let Paul be able to let the contracts for this tranche of units so that we can move ahead without additional approvals from the board. I see a question from John there.
Hey, Trevor, thanks for the report. My only concern when I looked this over was, I'm not going to call them out by name, but like there's units mentioned in here in areas with deep-rooted, multifaceted challenges and issues. Is it wise of us to select those units to retrofit over the others? Or should we be thinking about reallocating those units to areas that are less prone to those issues? That was my only concern with this one.
I believe one of the guidelines of the agreement that we signed with CMHC was that we had to proportion these across the entire portfolio. So we've selected specific buildings that are part of the CMHC portfolio, and we're obligated to do that across the entire portfolio. So while we may be able to shift, 2 or 3 here, we do have to do a selection at each of these buildings.
Yeah.
Point taken, but I think there is a need, even at we call them the higher acuity buildings, to house people, and closer to the downtown, that sort of thing. So in my opinion, I think there would be doing a disservice to not invest in those buildings as well.
If I can sort of follow up with that comment, Chair, just to provide just a perspective. I've had the opportunity to tour the units, and I thought I could share that. Yeah, and thank you, through the chair, John. It's a good question. I'll just share that we toured some of the accessible unit modifications, part of the pilot, to sort of figure out how to make this program work. And I was amazed at the transformation of some of the units. We have units that were built and designed. They were designed in the 60s, built in the 70s, and the layout, the flow does not work today. So the things we're doing in terms of accessibility improvements will improve the quality of lights of those tenants that live in there. And to the point of, there is some challenges in some of the buildings in the project, for sure. And we do have the ability in a portfolio perspective to shift some of those units around. But I think this is an opportunity to show we're investing in there and align the unit to the needs of the folks. Like, some of these units will be studios in some of our buildings, and they've got a big walk-in closet that doesn't work, right? So there's more space in that unit than we're actually utilizing for the tenant. So I think by taking this opportunity to rethink this, we might be able to rethink the building in the long term, right? We want to get another 50 years out of it. So this may give us some insight. And I was really amazed at some of the units, specifically at our Warncliffe site, that they repurposed the space in small ways that had a huge impact. And I think that's the type of thing we need to learn from, and sort of, because we do have like lots of years left in these buildings. So I just want to share that. And I think your point is well taken. And we've sort of thought about that a little bit in terms of the numbers we're putting at each site, seniors versus adult, et cetera. But there is a transformational opportunity here for some of the units. And we don't want to lose it based on our experience with the building over the last few years. So I'm hoping, and that's not to challenge your statement and the validity of it. It's just, I think there's an opportunity here.
I like that. I like that way of thinking, and I appreciate that perspective. And of course, it's not at all me saying we should favor others over anyone else. It's not a people conversation. It's a building conversation. If we're spending $75,000 a month to repair damages that continue to repeat in a building, does it make sense to take money from this fund and put it into units that are going to be destroyed and have to be repaired, and pulling funds from our budget? So that's, if you don't see that as being a challenge in those areas, and there's just idealistic, awesome things to come, great. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah.
There is an opportunity, and we want to seize it. And I do note that we did not cover the pest control report. Did the board want a quick overview of that report? And I sort of see a nod from the chair. So through the chair, so you have before you a report recommending the award of the contract for pest control services to a single vendor, Safeguard 24/7, for a 2-year term, with up to 2 1-year extensions of that contract. We have heard through our town halls that pest control services are not meeting the needs of tenants. We have seen in our operations the cost of pest control services skyrocketing. So we have a fundamental issue in the delivery of that service, and it's impacting tenants, it's impacting our budget, and we need to address it. We went through the RFP process, and through that process, we asked vendors for their overall approach. We set out an objective to reduce pest control service calls by 80%. We want to stop providing pest control services and start working to reduce and eliminate pests in our building. And while 100% pest-free is not something that's realistic, reducing the number of service requests we have will be is realistic, and that is our target through this approach. This vendor was selected because they shared that commitment. They demonstrated their ability to sort of deliver on that outcome. And through this, we're expecting improved service for tenants, reduction in pest control, and a reduction of pest control costs over the course of the contract. So we're recommending the approval of this contract and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Paul. I wish other people would ask questions tonight, but it's all good. Through you, Chair. With this one, like when I looked it over, I noticed there's some KPIs and measurables, which I think are great, like being incorporated just as a whole across the organization. And I just wonder if with this one in particular, given the challenges that have been vocalized, especially recently, the real life reality of tenants that are experiencing these challenges. I wonder, is there something in there where we're monitoring performance of the vendors and just making sure that the tenants are satisfied with the results, and that if they're not meeting these, like, are there measurables in place to make sure that we're progressing towards what they're promising to deliver? And is there something in there where tenants have like a bit of a voice to express to us that it's working for them or it's not working, so we know where to pivot as we go from here?
And yeah, through the chair, we are working on the KPIs now, and we need, for our internal ones, there's stuff that internal KPIs we need to set and monitor before they're not related to the vendor, right? So there's certain things that we need to do as an organization in order for that vendor to be successful. So we're setting those and laying those out now. And we are looking at options for tenants to provide more feedback on all maintenance requests, including pest control. We have a pilot going on in 6 sites where we've set up a QR code, and they can click it and provide us a few questions to their answers, to just basic questions about, did the service happen, in a timely manner? Did you get notice? All those things that matter to us. We're trying to look at what option is the best thing we can do for all our maintenance requests. The uptake is slow. Tenants aren't used to it. And, we have to think about how they leverage technology or don't in their lives to make sure we have, a fulsome review. But we're definitely looking at that. And, we're looking at other options that will make this automatic when a work order is closed. So if we start doing things like that, we're trying to create those feedback loops. And in our strategic plan, that's one of the things that we're talking about as an action item, is providing more feedback loops for tenants, and whether that's an annual tenant survey and feedback requests on maintenance and other mechanisms for managing complaints to record them differently and have those KPIs. We're trying to develop those right now. So we're looking at it holistically as much as we can. And as this contract sort of ramps up, we'll have KPIs in place.
Thanks, Paul. That's very hopeful and great to hear. I appreciate it.
I'm not hearing any shouting or seeing any electronic hand raised. So thank you, directors, for your question and comments. We will call the vote then. All those in favor of receiving and approving the reports? Thank you. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, motion is passed. Okay. Our sneaky last little one. The selection process for the tenant director. So this is a report that we will ask for approval on, and a brief reminder to the board. We developed and test drove a new process through our last tenant director selection process that we found to be very effective, and are hoping to follow the same process this time as well. And so I believe that the process is outlined in the package. And so we will get the motion on the table to select to approve the selection process for the tenant director, and then upon approval, should we elect to approve it, I will ask for volunteers to participate on the selection committee. So, seeking a motion to my phone just crapped out on me.
Seeking a motion to constitute a tenant selection committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Sean, is that
Yeah.
you volunteer motion? Thank you very much. Seconded by?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm back in business. The motion reads, create a subcommittee to review the applicants, direct the subcommittee members to use the framework established, direct the subcommittee to review the opportunity to enhance the selection process, delegate the authority to nominate the tenant board director candidates to the chair of the subcommittee, and authorize staff to take the necessary steps to give effect to the above recommendation. First we will ask, are there any questions or comments on the process? No, Kara, could I put you on the spot for a moment and have you just speak to the board about the process from your perspective?
It was a very good process and it worked well, and the questions were very accurately asked, and I enjoyed that process. It was a little bit of being on the spot, walking into a whole table of people, but everybody was friendly.
Good. So that's our endorsement on the process right there. Do we have other questions or comments? No? So we will ask for approval of the motion. All of those in favor? Any opposed? I can't see anybody, so I'm hoping they'll be shouting here. Thanks. Any abstained? Not seeing none. Okay, the motion is passed. And if we could take this opportunity to seek volunteers to participate on the selection subcommittee.
Well, Sean got
Well-
drafted last time, so I'll sit on it.
Yeah, and I'll volunteer too, Shelley.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. I thought I was going to have to volunteer because I've done it 3 times, but Councilman McAllister, thank you for relieving some pressure there.
I'll volunteer Deputy Mayor Lewis for that committee as well.
I was actually, I was going to offer an alternate suggestion, John. Given he's failed to attend the meeting tonight, I would like to volunteer our chair. Who participated in this last time. So he brings the voice of experience to the table to assist our 2 new members of the table.
Yeah.
Happy to help. Like, I can't 100% confirm until I know the particulars of what the commitment is on that, but happy to help out along the way regardless.
I think Shelley will help me by seconding we nominate Phil. Yeah.
You know, you do make a compelling argument, Deputy Mayor, that perhaps there would be some merit in having some consistency in the subcommittee to reiterate the process.
Yeah, I think
And
it is
so-
good that somebody who's done it before returns to that task, because Colin and Hadley will be new to this process. So, and you and I have done it more than our fair share, Shelley. So I think it's time for Phil to step up.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we will volunteer our board chair, Phil, to chair the subcommittee, and we will have him accompanied by Mayor Grantham and Councillor McAllister. Are there any, is there any opposition to that lineup or questions? No? Volunteers, I will thank you kindly for volunteering, and I'm sure that you will enjoy the experience as much as we have. So thank you, everybody.
Good. Okay, could I
Paul, can
request, sorry, Chair? So and just,
Yes.
could we request that you appoint an alternate in the name of John Corboy in the event the schedules and vacations do not align? So I don't have to reconvene a board meeting. But we lost John. So I think that would be a compromise, that we sort of have somebody, because we don't know the exact schedule yet, and we're going to try to make it work, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. I think that's a
Okay.
good idea, Paul.
Okay,
Agreed.
thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to vote with Phil in his absence and now John in his absence. Okay, understood.
And that's what you get for not being online. So Paul, can I leave it in your capable hands then to connect with the members of subcommittee to advance the process?
Absolutely. And just for the board's awareness, we'll connect with the city clerk, get the timing of the posting. We'll leave this open through for a significant period of time and do some engagement through social media and through building postings in our normal channels to try to generate the awareness and interest. So we don't expect to bring this back. I think it's going to target to come back to the September board meeting or that timeline to get to the city council for the end of September versus trying to rush it and have to do it like the first week of August and things like that. So we're going to try to leave it open, and there's really going to be only like 3 or 4 engagement periods, and most of that can be managed through Teams. So it shouldn't be that onerous, and we hope to keep it out of the summer if we can. And Melissa will reach out and we'll start doing the process and sharing information.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
A call for any new business or inquiries. I'm not seeing or hearing any. Okay, then I guess my final ask is motion to adjourn. Everybody wants to stay. Oh, Kara wants
No,
to go.
moved by Kara, seconded by
Goodbye.
Sean.
Okay, all of those in favor? I'd just like to
appears to
say
be
thanks
unanimous.
everybody for pitching in. Yes. Thanks for pitching in on group chairing of the meeting tonight. I appreciate that. Technology is what it is. So have a good evening, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Bye-bye.
See you soon, Hadley.